Some of you may be not really even familiar with swords, so I'm going to use this one to break it down for you. We have the pommel, which comes from the Latin for pom, or apple, little apple. We have the hilt. We have the Germans call this the Kreuz, or the cross. And we have the blade. And the blade is divided up into multiple regions. This is what's called the strong. This is what's called the weak, which is about one hand from the point, and this is about one hand from the cross. Can everybody see that? And of course there's the middle, which is right in between those 2 points. And then to break it down even further, Josh, come out here, please. This is Josh, by the way. I'm the musician. In a standard grip, which means that I'm gripping the sword like this, and my hand is somewhere down here like this, one edge is going to be facing him. The Germans call this the long edge. They call this the short edge. You could also say forward edge and back edge. The Italians call this the true edge and the false edge. Now, we know that no edge is longer than the other. But the Germans do call this long and short, which is something very interesting that I'll show you in a moment. But I want to get back to the what's sharp, what is thrusting, and being no part of the sword being in an advantage. We'll just give those here. In circa 1482, the Italian master Filippo Vadi says, in chapter 11 of his Arte di Mercante Gladiatoria, he says this, he says, hammer him in the mustache with your pommel. I'm hitting him in the face with this pommel. Or if we go back to the Latin, this is the little apple, I'm making him eat that little apple. So, I may have not killed this man, but I've certainly discouraged him from pressing the attack further. And in fact, in the medieval period, oftentimes it didn't behoove you to kill your opponent. Oftentimes you'd want to immobilize them, and if he's a knight, he has value to his lord. So I might take him captive and sell him back for a ransom. It's important to understand that the medieval knight is not the chivalric Dudley Do-Right that we've all been led to believe from the Victorians. He was much more like Tony Soprano than he was, your stereotypical good guy. Okay, so that's using the pommel. Now, when we talk about, you talked about the sharpness. I know I'm jumping around a lot, but I'm trying to answer your question as well as I can. This portion of the blade, which is one hand, this is what we call the weak. This is where it would have been the sharpest. Now, you might have noticed earlier when I had Josh almost supine, I gripped my own weapon. And this is something I'm going to be demonstrating later in our presentation this afternoon. I have a sharp blade that I'm going to be showing you that you can, in fact, grab these. There is a right way to do it, and I will state this copiously in my presentation later, but it bears repeating now. Please do not go home and grab sharp swords and try to do this unless you know what you're doing. Do not attempt this at home. So this is the sharp portion of my blade. In 1570, the German master Joachim Meyer says, to receive your opponent's blow, we're going to do this a little slow so that they can see what's going on. So I'll use my mnemonic cut. He says to receive the opponent's blow on the strong, and meanwhile injure him with the weak. My weak is in his temple. Now let's just rotate around so the other side of the room can also see what's occurring here. I have received him on the strong, and meanwhile, in the same instant, injured him with my weak by cutting him through the head. Okay, now, let's take it a step further. No part of the sword is invented in vain. Their internet exploded recently when the very first Star Wars Episode 7 trailer hit, and everybody says, what are those cool things coming out of the side of a lightsaber? Anybody see that? The lightsaber with the crossguard. Well, those of you who are writing science fiction, these historical principles can still inform you about how to write a really cool fight scene. And this is something I hope I see in Star Wars. Let's go this way, actually. Maybe we'll do it on both sides. So everybody to be able, if there's something you missed or you want to see it again, please. Also, I will try my best to recreate it. But for the most part, a lot of times I don't know what I'm going to do until he attacks me. Nothing's choreographed here. I have an idea, because we're talking about this Star Wars cool thing. But how I get to that idea, we're going to find out together. Watch those sprinklers. Stay this way just a little bit. You're clear. Okay. Hey! See these neat lightsaber things? I just chopped his hand off.
Ooh.
Because if this is that glowing lightsaber thing, I'm using that cross guard to cut his hand off right there. How about this? Cut! Right in the side of the head. Here's a fun one. Using that cross, I just severed his leg. Now he's a peg leg. Now we do our pirates. So now you're hopefully beginning to see that I'm using the strong, I'm using the weak, I'm using the cross guard, I'm using the pommel. I even use the grip. I'm really worried about the sprinklers. Hey!
Whoa.
Can everyone see how I'm using the grip to immobilize his wrist? Everybody see that? Meanwhile, I have my edge on his neck. I'm breaking his arm. And if he doesn't like going that way, or he ducks or slips it, I go this way.
I know,
Quick question.
Yes,
So that did not chop his head off or sever his neck enough to...
it may not.
So it's not as sharp there.
They weren't razor sharp, and they really didn't need to be. I've done copious amounts of